Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Anne Nwawado. Here's what's coming up this hour. A new report by Humanitarian Rights Watch says Saudi border guards were killed, a lot of migrants along the border with Yemen. Hurricane Hillary hits the U.S. state of California, bringing floods and high winds. Plus, ECOWAS rejects the Niger junta's announcement of a 3-year transition plan for the country. Hello, and thank you for joining us on The World Today on Channels Television. I'm Anne Nwawado. Let's begin with an event that happened on Saturday. It was World Humanitarian Day, established by the UN on August the 19th, 2009, to honor humanitarian aid workers worldwide. The day commemorates the anniversary of the bombing of the United Nations headquarters in Iraq, where 22 people lost their lives, including the Brazilian UN Special Representative of the Secretary General for Iraq, Sergio Vieira de Mello. Each year, World Humanitarian Day focuses on a theme, bringing together partners from across the humanitarian system to advocate for the survival, the well-being, and dignity of people affected by crisis and for the safety and security of aid workers. While the theme for this year is #NoMatterWhat, which partly suggests that the best interests of the people affected by humanitarian challenges must be prioritized in any given situation. The 2022 UN report shows that right here in Nigeria, 60% of the 2.5 million people in need of humanitarian assistance in Nigeria are children. Civil society actors are therefore calling on government to prioritize the well-being and uphold the rights of children affected by humanitarian challenges, as they are the most vulnerable. Joining us to discuss this is Ayodeji Adelopo, who's the Deputy Country Director of SOS Children's Village, an international development organization that provides direct services for children in emergency. Thank you very much for joining us on The World Today.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, besides the various themes that usually come up every year, I mean, to commemorate the World Humanitarian Day, what would you say is the core and the context behind this day and its significance since it started?
Thank you very much. Just like you said in your introduction, this journey to mark World Humanitarian Day started some 20 years ago during the tragic incidents that you referred to. And 5 years after that, in 2008, the UN General Assembly adopted a motion to designate 19th of August every year as the World Humanitarian Day. And the focus is to draw attention, to draw global attention to humanitarian needs globally, and also humanitarian issues that need to be discussed and addressed urgently by government and international bodies. Essentially, the World Humanitarian Day is meant to celebrate globally people helping people.
Sure. Well, according to the UN, over 360 million people are in need of humanitarian aid globally. And right here in Nigeria, from the statistics, already 2 to 8 million people in this category demand humanitarian assistance. What does this figure indicate, especially knowing that children are the most vulnerable in this case?
You see, there are various reports that have, told the story of the dire situation we are in our country. But what is more depressing is the fact that 60%, like you rightly said, of these people that are in need of humanitarian aid are children. And that is very significant when you consider the fact that when children, particularly when you're looking at children that are unaccompanied or separated from their parents, they are in need of protection. They are in need of protection because they are vulnerable at that stage. They are vulnerable. They are susceptible to abuse of all kinds. And that is why it's important to pay attention to that category of children. Currently, we talk about the fact that in Nigeria, we have about 20 million children that are out of school. That tells a lot of story of children who are not having access to education. Also, we know that a lot of children, particularly in the Bay State, are affected significantly by consequences of conflict in that region. We talk about children among these numbers who are affected by consequences of water-related issues that will also, result in waterborne diseases, and all of that. So when you look at all of this, the fact that 60% of the people in need of humanitarian aid are children calls for action for all of us to begin to do something to intervene, particularly when the most affected are the vulnerable, and which are children. So it's a call for government and international organizations and even the communities to work together to ensure that we provide services that will support these children, particularly in their situation.
Now, most times when you talk about children, you cannot remove the fact that most of them are also, these cases also affect women also, because, you connect women with their children, and most times this category of people are the most vulnerable. Is there anything going in for women as you are doing for the children?
Thank you very much. You see, when we talk about children, like you said, we cannot but talk about the duty bearers. And that is why we are talking about government. But beyond that, of course, parents have a responsibility to their children, whether the mother or the father. And what is key also is to empower these families, to empower the parents so that they're able to care for their children. But when we're talking about these circumstances, particularly those in need of humanitarian, we're talking about the fact that a number of these children, they are unaccompanied and separated from their parents. That is why we need to pay special attention to them because of the need for protection, access to services, nutrition, and the like. But also, of course, among these people also are the parents. And it's important that parents are empowered, their capacities are built, they are given all the resources they require to be able to take care of their children, even in these special circumstances as well.
But what recommendations will come in handy for example, for the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs, Minister for Women Affairs? These two ministers are directly involved with this issue we're talking about. What do you advise the government can do in this regard?
Thank you very much. We've talked about the challenges that, children in these emergency situations are facing, malnutrition, lack of access to education, they are open to abuse, they are being forced, they are being recruited forcefully, to either forced labor or terrorism, as the case may be. Because of all of this, it's important that the government, particularly the ministers you mentioned, go to work to improve, to see how we can, look at innovative ways, and also to improve the resources that are allocated to the protection of children in our country. Aside from that, also we also need to look at the processes involved in reporting and responding, to abuse of children. We also need to look at how we can ensure that violators or people who abuse children are properly, cases are properly treated and children are well protected. Beyond that, concerning this, I also want to recommend that the ministers should also look at the need to review the Child Rights Act of 2003. Is long overdue. We need to consider the best practices in place suggested by the UN, including the alternative care guideline for children, and also looking at our context today. What do we need to do about that act that we need to improve, that will better support children, particularly children in need of humanitarian aid, as we've discussed? So that is one. Also, government needs to also talk about, look into access to nutrition. Like I said, quite a number of children in our country have been said to be malnourished. So government needs to invest in access to food and nutrition. Of course, we need to look at how children can get education. If 20 million children are out of school, that means that we need to look at how do we help children to access quality education, particularly children in difficult circumstances who, because of the environment, are not able to go to school. There's also the need for government to ensure that families are affected by flood. Early this year, our organization, SOS Children's Villages, also acted actively in that space to ensure that families affected by flood in the 2022 flood were supported with both cash and conditional and unconditional cash transfers. Now, these are areas government can look at to expand, the number of families and children that are supported going forward. We need to look for creative ways because the need are higher now. So these ministers must, get down to work and ensure that families and children in particular are supported, because no matter what, children must be prioritized.
Well, let me take you on the part where you said the government's interventions. I mean, one intervention that the federal government has announced is 5 billion naira to every state. How will this help as palliatives? How will this help in ensuring the needs get to the right people, to the root, to those who actually need it? And how would it affect children and vulnerable people in the society?
Thank you very much. I think that's a very important issue to look at. You see, when stakeholders come to talk about how these funds and resources be utilized, you can be sure that children will not be on the table. And that is why it's important we use the opportunity to talk for children and to tell the government that we need to prioritize the needs of children. Because they are the most vulnerable. And the fact that, like we said, 60% of people in need of humanitarian assistance in Nigeria today are children. So it's common logic for us to prioritize them. Whichever way we want to deploy as a government to address these needs, we must think of children first, no matter what. I know the resources may not be able to go around, but we need to think about children first, particularly those that are in need of humanitarian assistance, as we've discussed.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ayodeji Adeloko is the Deputy Country Director of SOS Children's Villages, which is an international development organization that provides direct services to children in emergency. And well done for the work you do.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's move to other stories now. Hurricane Hillary has been downgraded to a tropical storm after it lashed through Southern California, posing a course to every activity. It is the first tropical storm to hit the southwest United States in over 80 years. California's Pacific coast is usually protected from hurricanes and, of course, tropical storms due to a variety of factors, including colder ocean temperatures. This, however, sees ocean hitting their hottest ever recorded temperature. There was heavy rains and fierce winds causing chaos in the whole of Southern California roads. People fled the storm as officials ordered evacuations when it happened. Storm Hillary, which made landfall earlier in the day in the northern part of Baja California Peninsula, had been weakening over the previous 48 hours, but was still set to be the wettest storm ever to hit the U.S. Southwest. Now let's have our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird. She joins us now to discuss more on this. Hello, Maria. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Anne.
All right. How much of a damage has Hillary caused in California as we speak?
Hillary has caused some damage, mostly flooding. As we know, that region of the country is a lot of its desert, typically don't have a lot of rainfall there in that California region. I mean, that's what California is known for being very sunny and with minimal rainfall. And so what we're seeing now is that there's flooding specifically in the Palm Springs area of the California region. And so many of the many of those who are actually in California and that Los Angeles region have seen quite a bit of rain, but not the type of flooding where it's very hard to get in and out of Palm Springs, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours from the LA area. We know the southern region of California, specifically San Diego, which is bordering up against Mexico, has seen a lot of torrential rain. There was some power outages right outside of Los Angeles as well. A little over 20,000 people were without power, but I believe that those outages have been resolved at this time. So as you mentioned, it was downgraded from a hurricane to a tropical storm.
We have seen pictures, we've seen floods and high winds. Is this the first time the state is experiencing severe climate events like this one?
Yes, this is the first time in almost 90 years that there has even been an anticipated hurricane to hit the region. Yes, they've had storms, but not anything considered a hurricane, even though it was downgraded to a tropical storm. And a lot of that is due to the fact that hurricanes typically rise up in areas where there's extreme heat and weather that is extremely, the water there would be at 80 degrees or above, typically, which is why you see it in New Orleans, Florida, those regions of the country where we normally see hurricanes. The Pacific is so cold that hurricanes typically are not able to really last there in those regions. And they, as this one did, turn into tropical storms or just heavy rainfall. So the Pacific is not an area where we typically see hurricanes, just due to the fact that the climate does not sustain for that type of weather.
Well, we know officials ordered evacuations. Did people heed to these calls?
Evacuations were definitely somewhat heated too. Many individuals decided to wait it out as they knew that there would probably likely not be a hurricane, but just heavy rain and flooding. So you're seeing the majority of individuals did stay in their homes, but Palm Springs is a region that those who did not evacuate are probably today trying to find a way out because most of that area is flooded.
But what is the situation looking like now with all of these going on?
Rain has pretty much subsided in the middle area of Los Angeles. The southern region still has a little bit of rain, but most of the weather has moved offshore, and they are going into a recovery mode at this time.
Well, we also understand, Maria, that there was a 5.1 magnitude earthquake before Hillary hit. Tell us more about that incident.
Well, as we know, that is typical for that region, is to have some type of hurricane, some type of earthquakes, And those earthquakes, a lot of times, even though they're at that level of magnitude, oftentimes are not really felt unless you're really getting closer to 7 magnitude in force. And so there was no reported real damage as a result of that earthquake. And again, I think this tropical storm was a greater concern for that area.
All right. Thank you very much, our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird. Thanks a lot for your contribution on the program. And coming up on The World Today. Welcome back. The West African Regional Group in ECOWAS has dismissed as a negotiating tactic the announcement by Niger's coup leader that civilian rule cannot be restored for 3 years. The organization's political commissioner, Abdel Fattah Musa, said the timetable was unacceptable. On Saturday, General Abdurrahman Chiani said a national dialogue was needed to lay the foundations for a new political order in Niger Republic. ECOWAS has threatened military action to restore the ousted President Bazoum, but crowds have again rallied in the capital Niamey to support the coup. Human Rights Watch says that Saudi border guards killed many migrants along the Yemeni border as they tried to come into the country, albeit illegally. The report says that hundreds of people, mostly Ethiopians, who cross Wataron, Yemen to reach Saudi Arabia have been shot dead. The report by Human Rights Watch is titled, "They Fired on Us Like Rain." It contains graphic testimony from the migrants who say they were shot at and sometimes targeted with explosive weapons by Saudi police and soldiers on Yemen's rugged northern border with Saudi Arabia. Migrants contacted separately by the BBC recalled terrifying nighttime crossings during which large groups of Ethiopians, including women and children, came under fire as they attempted to cross the border in search of work in the oil-rich kingdom. In the meantime, migrants, especially those from Africa, go through harsh conditions to get to these countries where they think will receive better living conditions and a chance of making their lives better. While host countries provide rescue ships for those coming via the sea, in addition to other measures, of course, illegal migration remains a major problem for many countries that have become destination for these migrants. Joining us now to discuss this is human rights activist Olatunji Lanre-Barua. He joins us from our studios in Abuja. Thank you very much, Mr. Barua, for joining us on The World Today.
Thank you for having me, Han.
All right. I'm sure you have heard them all. I mean, the plight of migrants making the dangerous journey from Africa all the way to Europe. Do these accounts by migrants arriving in Saudi Arabia sound believable? And is there even a possibility that they were attacked? As according to them, they were shot like rain. And they say they were attacked, I mean, in an effort to make sure they do not enter the country or pass through. Do you think this is a believable or possible situation?
If you look at trends in recent years, it will naturally be believable instances because this is not the first time this is happening, and you have to look back to the crisis we had in Libya some years back with refugees from sub-Saharan Africa, and a lot of Nigerians were among those migrants that were locked up in, different camps in Libya and torture and, dehumanized. We've had several other instances. You have the one that happened in Morocco at the border into Spain, And, you find a lot of people were killed in the stampede that happened at that point. Even at the U.S.-Mexico border, there are also other issues there. But what's his name? The Vice President of the United States once said that do not come. And that's Kamala Harris. And you see, it's he heightens all the tension around migrants, trying to get into other countries. So they are believable because we have seen several dehumanizing situations and all sorts of horrendous, terror perpetrated against migrants in different parts of the world, in Poland, even Malta, in the Greek island, the Mediterranean Sea, even at the Italian border post. We've had several cases of migrants drowning in the Mediterranean Sea. So they are believable. It's just an horrendous incident. It's really, really disheartening.
The issue of illegal migration has been a hot topic since 2015, when the influx became worrisome by European leaders. But measures have been applied to reduce these numbers. Do you think these measures are working as we speak?
It will really be difficult to. The measures are working, but also they are contributing to some of the problems we're dealing with. We've had a lot of European countries externalizing border control, giving aids and grants to militia. And I say that, in quotes, because if you look at there are several entities in Libya, in Morocco, who have been supported by the European Union to stop migrants from coming over. So it might seem to be working in those in the destination countries. You have to also look at what is the reason that is driving people from the origin countries. If you keep having conflict across the African region, you are going to have forced displacement. Now, the Human Rights report, Human Rights Watch report, you see that most of the indictments was against Saudi Arabia, and most of the victims were Ethiopians. And we've had a conflict in Ethiopia, the Tigrayan crisis, which has forced displacement of hundreds of thousands of people. And they will seek to get, as fast as possible to wherever they think might be safe for them. I saw videos, and so these issues, if you keep having conflict, and there's nothing we can do unless the UN, move and activate much more stringent measures, especially in mediation and conflict prevention, because the signals are always coming early. Now we have a potential crisis at our own doorstep in Nigeria, across in sub-Saharan Africa, in the ECOWAS sub-region. If a military intervention happened in Niger Republic in an attempt to return President Bazoum to power, we are going to have a conflict, and we don't know. We only know when it will start. We don't know when it will end. We don't know the form of displacement that might arise from that, and people might stream into Nigeria, and we might have retaliation that will force the displacement of other people also in the border towns across the continent. Niger borders Togo, borders Benin Republic and Nigeria. So it's really tricky. You have to prevent conflict from origin countries, and you also have to deal with measures in destination countries. There is a strong appetite for cheap labors in the European Union, and they always get these people in. And back to the case of Saudi Arabia, there are also high number of domestic servants in Saudi Arabia. So people are, lured into the country. They become domestic servants. They don't have papers. They can't raise their voice. And, it's pretty difficult. It's a difficult period, actually, for migrants across different geography across the world.
Well, you just spoke about people not being able to raise their voices when they enter these countries. I mean, these migrants are at the mercy of the countries in which they arrive in. Do they have any rights at all as they enter these countries?
Yeah, there's been several conventions, international treaties that convey rights to migrants and refugees. Starting from the International Declaration of Human Rights, the 1948 Declaration, and to several conventions, 1961, 1966, there's even one in 1980. So, and see, migrants are supposed to be given access. You must not dehumanize them. You do not torture them. You give them, opportunities, access to opportunities, education, healthcare. These are things that are enshrined in those international treaties, but how well have they been followed through? How well have they been, honored by the countries that are signatories to it? If countries even in Europe are violating that international treaty, there was an incident where even the Italian border, the Coast Guards prevented the rescue ships that wanted to get migrants off the Mediterranean. And so you have those kind of incidents, and the rights are enshrined in those treaties and conventions, but following through on them is a major challenge for the United Nations. And also, when these cases are reported, we expect investigation and referral to International Criminal Court in The Hague. But most of the time, you find the process of gathering the evidence and all the necessary information are also cumbersome. So it's really difficult, but the rights are enshrined. You have to give them rights. You don't dehumanize displaced people, don't dehumanize refugees and migrants.
All right. Thank you very much, human rights activist Olatunji Lanre Barua. Thank you for your time and your contribution on The World Today.
Anytime. Thank you.
We've talked about migrants, especially those from Africa, going through harsh conditions. On the other hand, this migration, especially the ones that are not legal, remains a major problem for many countries that have become destination for these migrants. Find out more in this report.
It's been a tough many hours for migrants leaving Africa to settle in Europe, especially those traveling by sea. But not everyone has been able to make it across. In the Senegalese fishing village of Fasboye, residents mourn the loss of their loved ones who did not make the trip. More than 100 people boarded a fishing boat were on July the 10th bound for Europe. Like so many others that brave hundreds of miles of open ocean each year, this one never arrived. On August 15th, the boat was found by a Spanish fishing boat drifting off the island of Archipelago of Cabo Verde, hundreds of miles off course. Only 38 of the passengers were rescued, but more than 60 others were not. The survivors were on the island of Sal in Cabo Verde, where Senegal was liaising with authorities for the repatriation of the survivors. The situation is a reminder about the difficulty that migrants face trying to make it across. 22-year-old Afghan migrant Idris thought he was going to die when the small boat he and dozens of others were on capsized in the English Channel as they tried to reach Ireland from France. He drew strength from memories of his parents back home. It's how and why he stayed afloat. 6 people died when the boat he was traveling in sank. More than 60 people, mostly Afghans, were saved by French and British rescue teams, including Idris and 15-year-old Fawad. The channel between France and Britain is one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, and currents are strong, making the crossing on small boats dangerous. Last Wednesday, young children were among dozens of migrants rescued and brought ashore from the English Channel, days after 6 people died in the boat carrying Idris and Fawad. The migrants were met by UK Border Force officers. Weather conditions have been more favorable in recent months, and many small boats carrying migrants from Afghanistan, India, Iran or Iraq to cross the channel. This time last year saw the highest number of small boat arrivals for any month on record, while half of all migrants arrived during the August to October period. Most times, European countries send rescue ships to these small boats while they are out at sea. Head of Gravelines branch of French National Sea Rescue Society, Jean-Pierre Fenot, said the boats are most of the time overloaded, which hampers their movement out at sea. He says the ones intervened on were too full. The United Nations Migration Agency says last year was the deadliest for migrants in the Middle East and North Africa since 2017. According to them, there were at least 3,800 deaths on sea and land migration routes within and from the Middle East North Africa region. Meanwhile, a report released by Saudi authorities back in 2019 showed the country is among the corridors used by migrants headed to Europe via the Mediterranean. Thousands were arrested that year as they attempted to enter Saudi Arabia without a visa in the previous 12 months. 49% of them were Yemeni and 48 were Ethiopian. Migrants have also been using the Bab el-Mandeb Strait to get to Yemen from Africa, some traveling the other way around. The journey remains dangerous in both directions.
And for the first time ever, here is women participate in one of the toughest bike races in the world. That's still to come on The World Today. Stay with us. Nurse Lucy Letby, who is Britain's most prolific serial child killer in modern times, will spend the rest of her life behind bars for murdering 7 newborn babies and trying to kill another 6. A judge ordered at Manchester Crown Court today. The 33-year-old murdered 5 baby boys and 2 girls at the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital in Northern England over 13 months from 2015. Injecting the infants with insulin or air or forcing them to feed milk. Some of those she attacked were twins. In one case, she murdered both siblings. In another case, she killed 2 or 3 triplets. And in 2 instances, she murdered 1 twin, but then failed in her attempts to kill the other. Whole life orders are very rare, and only 3 women in Britain so far have received such a sentence before, including serial killers Maria Hendley and Rosemary West.
Lucy Letby, on each of the 7 offences of murder and the 7 offences of attempted murder, I sentence you to imprisonment for life. Because the seriousness of your offences is exceptionally high, I direct that the early release provisions do not apply. The order of the court, therefore, is a whole life order on each and every offence, and you will spend the rest of your life in prison. The defendant, Lucy Letby, has refused to attend court for this sentence hearing. Accordingly, I have to sentence her in her absence. I shall deliver the sentencing remarks as if she was present to hear them. The methods you employed to carry out your murderous intent were only revealed by the later detailed investigation into the events of and surrounding the collapses and deaths of the babies, which commenced in 2018. There was premeditation, calculation, and cunning in your actions. You specifically targeted twins and latterly triplets. Some babies were healthy. Others had medical issues of which you were aware. On occasions, you cruelly and callously made inappropriate remarks to some of the grieving parents at the time of or in the immediate aftermath of a death.
And finally, almost 150 athletes from all over the world have gathered in Kyrgyzstan to take part in one of the toughest bike races in the world, Silk Road Mountain Race 2023, which got underway on August the 12th and will end this Saturday, August the 26th. And for the first time in the cycling event's 5-year history, 2 Kyrgyz women, Aishola Aiseva and Aiperi Bakirova, have taken part in this year's race alongside 6 other Kyrgyz nationals, all male cyclists. 25-year-old Aiseva says that she would love to for more people from her country to participate in this race. The Silk Road Mountain Race was launched in 2018, and it is the only event of its kind in Central Asia. The race is over a fixed route through the mountains of Kyrgyzstan. Well, that's a beautiful exercise. But on that note, we end the world today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Enjoy the rest of your day.